Hi everyone, welcome back to another video on the engine removal for Misty. So, I'm going to start where I finished off last time, as I have been doing. I've had to invest in a new cover. And the reason being, the last one just decided to give up. I thought by investing some money in a Stormforce one it would last a bit longer than 15 months, but the weather's taken its toll and this is what happened. So the new one, I've opted for something a bit cheaper, and I'll see how that goes. Half the price, and it's quite good quality. It's got a lining inside, you can see. I've got a nest up there, and we're getting quite a lot of birds using this as target practice. So, I'm going to get this cover off. I'm going to get into where I left off. The last time I was lying underneath the car for a while, getting most of it done. What I didn't get to was disconnecting the clutch and the linkage. So I'm going to look at that straight off from here, and then it's a case of getting the mountings, getting some panels out of the way, and hopefully getting this engine lifted out in this video. I'm hoping to finish it off in this video because there's not an awful lot left. What I will add, that I forgot to add before, I'm taking this based on what I'm finding it. So that's not to say that some of the connections, some of the modifications aren't standard or aren't correct. They're what whoever has worked on it numerous times before me have done. So when it comes to putting it back together, I'll obviously need to do a little bit of research, and I've still not fully decided what I'm putting back together yet. As I'm working through, seeing the condition of the body, etc., it changes. So whether I upgrade, whether I go something crazy, whether I keep original, it's still in the balance. But for this, let's finish this engine removal, get it out, and then we can start looking at the engine in the garage and the car in here. I'm bound by the weather. It's supposed to be dry today, so fingers crossed I get a good run at it. Right, what I'm going to do, lift out this seat, lift off the floor panel, get the inner panel out that reveals underneath where the gearbox is, and see how much access I've got to the clutch from the top. If I can't get good enough access, I'm to jack it up and go underneath again, but I would rather do it from the top than lying on a cold wet floor. Right, I'm hoping that'll make it easier to get under here, but I'm also going to take the cover plate off that's held on by screws, bolts, screws, washers, everything, and half of them are missing, so go and get these off, get this lifted off, and let's see how much access I've got. This helps the access. This wasn't me, this was done before I got it, but at least it's not too much bad metal. And it's always had a new brake master cylinder. Right, disconnecting the clutch from the gearbox. I've probably found this to be the most fiddly job so far with the engine removal, mainly because of space. You've seen me taking the cover off so I could get access to here, and I could get access, but it's just awkward lying here trying to get big hands in and get stuff disconnected. I have to say, the way this is described in the Haynes manual and what I've seen described elsewhere, it's not the clearest. So I've kind of had to just go in, look and make up my own assessment and see how it all connects up. So I'm going to try and explain it best I can, albeit I have said before, the best way to understand it is just to get your hands dirty. So this part here is connected via a clevis pin which runs through these two here with it in the middle. So it basically sits like that, and that's what attaches the clutch lever to the rod. This end here that is coming loose from the spring, as you can see, so the spring comes off there. If we go up here, that tucks in here and it's secured on with two bolts. Bolts are off. The rod, you can see there's a hole here and a hole here. That is attached with two bolts, and sorry you're going upside down there, onto the chassis in here. So what I done, took the two bolts off here, the two bolts off at the chassis, and clipped the split pin and removed the clevis pin. I'm just letting this hang loose. It's attached by this other clevis pin here, but it's not going anywhere, so it can stay there. It now means the clutch assembly is free from the gearbox. Like I always do, I have put the clevis pin back in here, I've tied this up, and I've put the bolts back into the chassis so that I know where they are, I won't lose them, and this has been tied round with string so that when it does go out through the engine bay it'll not snag on anything. Just these little things make your life that little bit easier down the line. Right, to the rear left hand side of the gearbox is an earth strap connected to the underneath of the chassis, goes up and it's connected onto this bracket for the engine mount. So this is a 1/2 inch bolt, just undo that, take the strap away, and that leaves that clear so it's not obviously snagging when you try to pull it out. And that can just be lifted away. Pop this back in here so I know where it goes. Onto the gearbox mounts. So it has two, one on this side and the same on the other side. These mounts will be getting replaced in time, but at the moment, so that the gearbox can be lifted free, I'm going to undo this bolt here and the same on the other side. Once that's done, it means that the gearbox should be free from everything in here except for the prop shaft, which once it pulls forward it'll come off. So I'm going to do this off camera, get rid of these two bolts on the other side as well, and then I can move back to the engine bay and get the last few bits and pieces ready for removal. These bolts are off, so the orientation it came in, got a grip washer, and then the bolt screws down in that orientation. So these obviously still sat in place. There'll be a bit more manoeuvrability in the gearbox once the engine mounts have been undone and it's freed from there. So when I do lift these off, I'll need to obviously lift them up the way to free them from the actual mounts themselves. The nuts in here I can loosen off because these just pull up, so it just means they'll come free away with the gearbox. But in terms of in here, that's me done. I can now move back to the mounts in the engine bay, and I can then look at about accessibility and getting the engine crane out and getting this engine out. Back round to the engine bay, the mounts here are held on by one bolt under here. and the same on the other side. It's a bit more tricky in there because of where they've put the alternator, but accessible. So I'm going to go ahead, undo both of these, and then that basically means the only thing holding the engine in, I hope, is gravity. So I'm nearly ready to get this engine hoisted out, but there's a few things getting in my way. One, this front grille. Two, the bonnet. Let's start with the grille. The bumper has to come off, and this whole grille panel here. Now, this has been off because it's missing all these screws round here, and if we can go underneath, all these along here, so there's not actually holding too much on Misty. There's a couple of big bolts under here, and on the other side, cobwebs. And then the bumper and the grille can be lifted off. The only other two bolts that are holding the front on are, well, say 4. Two on this side and two on this side, and you can see they're new, so someone again has started the job and never finished it. Before taking the front panel off and to get better access in here, I'm just going to undo the bonnet pull catch. It's basically got a split pin underneath. Pull that out and this just pops out. And the top two sets of bolts. I'll undo them off camera and then I'll lift this front away. It's actually quite something when you see it like this. The fact that you could actually just remove that, the room you've got here to work, is fantastic. Gets you also a closer look at the condition of the chassis underneath. It's obviously going to need some repairs. How much I won't know until I start digging, but that's another day. Right, now I need the bonnet to be out of the way, but I don't want to take it off because I'm working outside, and obviously it's shelter for the engine bay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove this split pin here, pull the clevis pin out, which then means the bonnet can tilt further back. And what I've done is I've got some rope tied to the back that I'm just going to tie to hold the bonnet up and out of the way. That way it's a lot easier just to put it back down, close, put the cover on and walk away. Hopefully that will give me enough clearance. And just tied onto the handle at the back. So I've got the engine crane positioned. Took a bit of fiddling getting under here with the flat tyre, but I've done it. I have this balancer, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get this connected to the rocker cover bolts. Start lifting. I've got a few things I need to be careful with. This bar needs to be lifted once the engine's manoeuvred, and the mounts need to be manoeuvred out of here. I'm hoping there's nothing else snagging, but this is when I find out. Right, you seen me attaching those, not too tight but tight enough. So now I'm just going to slowly start lifting it, see if anything catches, taking the extra care that I have to get all the bits off that are still semi-attached. So, this is what we've been waiting for since the start. Right, I think it's not separating from here. I was hoping it would lift off, but it seems to be clinging on, so I'm going to take these bolts off and see if it's going to come off a bit freer. These are obviously really seized on. Right, I've taken all 4 bolts off of here. It's still putting up a bit of a fight, so I'm going to prise this loose because it is getting held on by here. That's just age. So snagging slightly there. It's putting up a fight with the mounts here, so best way is just to get these manoeuvre with a pry bar, get them lifted out, and then the prop shaft obviously has to be pulled that way, so it's just about getting the right angles and removing anything that's going to snag. So I'm going to go and take these out of the way completely, which will hopefully let me pull it clear. Pumping it again.
What was that?
So that loud pop and bang was the prop shaft being disconnected. Got these mounts free, got the prop shaft, so it's just a case of manoeuvring it out. Try that, ready? Push. Forward, slowly pump it, forward.
Did that move it?
Yeah. Ready? Have that. Pull it towards her slowly. No, not that, this. Lift it up a bit 'cause it's hitting the front. Pump it.
Again.
Yeah.
Oh, it's got it.
Keep going. It's not low, it's off the channel, it was like that.
Is it?
Catch it up there. Right, so this is hopefully this thing can come away. Pump it up now. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Right there.
Did I push it back?
Yeah, go for it. It's heavy though. Right, watch. Pump up a bit more.
Is it good?
Yep.
Just tell me when to
I'm
stop.
going to hit it.
That might be able to do it.
Oh, sorry. Right, push it back. Push it back. No, that's not enough. But push it further.
Keep pushing.
No, that's it. Ah, a little bit of that, that's why it's getting stuck. Whew. So thanks to my helper there. It is out. That was a bit of a struggle towards the end. And that's it, the engine's out. It put up a bit of a fight at the end there. The prop shaft and the mounts were just the angles of them really, it just needed a bit of fiddling. My son helped me, that made it a bit easier. And it's quite heavy, so it just takes a bit of patience, a bit of time. How have I found the procedure? Enjoyable, easy. The clutch part was a bit fiddly. That was the only bit I kind of had to get any awkward angles and skin my knuckles on, but apart from that, straightforward. There's a lot of bits I need to replace that aren't here. There's a lot of bits that aren't standard. I need to do quite a bit of research to find out what I need to put orders in before I start stripping the engine, doing the bodywork. So yeah, that's a big milestone. That's the engine out. It's in the garage now, so I can work on it no matter what the weather. So if I can't work on the shell or the bodywork because of the weather, I can work on the engine. Bearing in mind I've got the minis to work on as well. So no, thanks for joining me for this series. Hope you got something from it. Any feedback, good or bad, is welcome. I'm learning as I go really, enjoying every minute and happy to share if it helps anyone out there. So as always, thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers!